Today we'll be starting off with the life of the Holy Prophet और आज हम एक brief summary लेंगे about the life in Makkah and life in Medina. Very brief summary. फिर हम उसके details से next class में कल वाली में topical past papers questions के answers भी read करेंगे. But before that you should have a basic knowledge about life in Makkah and life in Medina both जो आपका question number 3 आता है for paper number 1. Now, 6 months before the Prophet ﷺ's birth, his father Abdullah bin Abu Muttalib passed away on a trade journey to Syria. Hazrat Amina gave birth to Prophet in 570 AD and his grandfather Abu Muttalib named him Muhammad ﷺ, meaning the praised one. Now, this name was unique and unheard of before as well. But it was a customs of Arabs at that time to send the sons to desert कि उनको रेगिस्तान में जाके ले जाएं through nannies. Now, not a single woman accepted Muhammad because he did not have a father, but one woman, Halima, who had just had a son herself, was unable to find a child, and she only accepted Muhammad ﷺ because she couldn't find anyone else and didn't want to bear the embarrassment of going back empty-handed. तो उन्होंने फिर मोहम्मद को अपने साथ ले लिया था. Halima's fortunes changed from the moment she took Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Her donkey, who had been very weak, slow, became very nimble और वो चलने लग गया था. इवन जो उनके बगीचे में डेट के खजूर के दरख्त होते थे वो खजूरें ही नहीं बोर कर रहे थे बट सडनली वो इतनी किस्मत अच्छी हो गई कि वो खजूरें देने लग गई. Her she camel also started giving milk despite not having done so in very long, and she lacked milk herself for even one child and now was able to feed both her son and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At the age of 2, Halima took Muhammad back to his mother but asked her allowed to keep him for longer. Hazrat Amna allowed her to keep him for longer, and one day Halima's son told his mother that he saw two men dressed in shining white cut open his chest and clean his heart. He said, Verily, Muhammad has been murdered. अब हलीमा एकदम वरी हो गई कि उनके बच्चे ने क्या देख लिया, and she returned Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to his mother. Abu Muttalib and Abu Talib are one of the most important personalities in the life of Holy Prophet as well. The Prophet lost his mother soon after Halima returned him at the age of 6, and she passed away while coming back from a visit to her husband's grave in Yasrib. His grandfather Abu Muttalib took him into his care, and Abu Muttalib treated him with great care and affection, similar how he treated his own son Abdullah as well. He took Muhammad with him everywhere, even जब वो कबीलों और chiefs से भी मिलने जाते थे. 2 years later, Prophet lost his grandfather Abu Muttalib as well, और तब उनके uncle Abu Talib took him under his care. Abu Talib had been very poor and took care of the Prophet despite his financial troubles. Abu Talib once even took Prophet ﷺ to Syria on a trade journey, and the caravan stopped at Bostra. A monk named Bahira वहां रहता था और उसके manuscripts ने ये predict कर दिया the coming of the Prophet sealed. He noticed the signs of the caravan and a cloud hovered over the caravan as it moved, और जैसे ही caravan रुकता था वो cloud भी रुक जाता था. Bahira ने उनको invited the caravan for the meal for the first time, even though the caravan stopped there often. He looked through the faces of everyone and could not see the signs of a prophet. He asked if everyone was present and was told that one boy remained with the luggage, and Bahira sent for him and watched him as he ate, asking many questions. Bahira asked him to remove his cloak from his shoulder, and then he saw the seal of prophethood जिन्होंने signs confirm कर दिए थे. He told Abu Talib that great things are in store for your nephew and told him to protect him from the Jews, from they would harm him if they knew who he is. उसी दौरान when Prophet was very young, Harbal Fajr और Halful Fazul, ये दो wars हो गई थी. The two sacrilegious wars were fought between the forbidden months. Both of these wars took place in Makkah, and as the rule of law was broken, Prophet ﷺ was also present in the battles without fighting. He collected fallen arrows from the ground and gave them to his uncles for reuse. The confederacy that followed the Arbuluja, the oath was taken by Quraysh to suppress violence and injustice. उसी वक्त chiefs of Banu Hashim and Banu Zura then pledged to bring peace and to end these wars. Prophet was also present there, and he took the oath and said that I was present in the house of Abdullah bin Judan and had so excellent a pact that I would not exchange my part in it for a herd of red camels, and if now in Islam I was summoned onto it, I would gladly respond. Then that is the time after which he was also, after some time, married to Hazrat Khatija. Now, the Prophet had earned the titles of al-Sadiq and al-Amin because of his honesty. Sadiq al-Amin का मतलब honesty, सच्चा. Hazrat Khatija, who was a twice widowed wealthy merchant, heard of the Prophet's honesty and trustworthiness. She hired the Prophet for a trade journey to Syria, and Masera, जो Khatija का servant होता था, he accompanied the Prophet as well. Masera witnessed many miracles during the journey, and she had seen two angels hover over the Prophet's head, guarding him from the scorching sun as well. During this stop at Bosra, a monk also asked Masera about the Prophet ﷺ, saying, "Who is sitting under a tree?" The monk said, "None other than a prophet is sitting beneath that tree." Hearing about the conduct of the Prophet ﷺ, Khadija sent a proposal for marriage to him, and a female friend of Khadija went to Prophet and asked him why he had not married. The Prophet said he did not have the means. Nafesa, जो उनकी सहेली थी हजरत खतीजा की, she said, "What if you were given the means, and what if there was a woman who combined beauty with property and a noble bloodline and an abundant coffer?" Prophet said, "Who is she?" He asked Khadija, and she replied, "For my part, I am willing," he said. After agreement of both of their uncles, the two of them were married when Prophet was 25 and Hazrat Khatija was 40. And this marriage was conducted by Abu Talib. Blackstone का issue, ठीक है? Blackstone issue क्या था? When Prophet was 35, Kaaba had been damaged from its age. And the fear of floods, हमेशा मक्का में एक fear आता that the floods are going to put a great risk to the Blackstone again. कुरैश ने decide किया कि काबा को दोबारा rebuild करते हैं. And after the walls were high enough for the Blackstone, a disagreement broke out. Every clan wanted to have an honor of placing it. हर clan चाहता था कि हम वो black हजरत अस्वद place करें. टेंशन इतनी हाई हो गई थी कि वो बैटल करने के लिए रेडी हो गए थे, लेकिन एक बहुत बुजुर्ग आदमी ने ये सजेस्ट किया दैट द फर्स्ट पर्सन टू एंटर द मॉस्क शुड बी अलाउड टू चूज. जो नेक्स्ट डे पहला बंदा मस्जिद में आएगा वो चूज करेगा. The Prophet Muhammad was the first one there, and everyone was happy seeing him given his titles. He asked for a cloak and placed the stone on top of the cloak. Holy Prophet सबसे पहले आए थे, उन्होंने क्या किया, मुझे एक चादर दो. उन्होंने क्या किया, उस चादर के बीच में उस ब्लैक स्टोन को रखा, और चारों कोनों से उन्होंने चारों ग्रेट लीडर्स जो कबीले के थे, जो क्लैंस थे चीफ्स के, कुरैश के, बनु हाशिम के, तैफ के, कुरैजा के, उन सबको कहा कि आके आप एक एक कॉर्नर पकड़े उन चीफ से का. And then the Prophet then himself placed the stone on the corner of the Kaaba. Ab, when he started to preach Islam, हमने Quran and its importance में already first revelation वाला पूरा वाक्या पढ़ा था. If you remember, we talked about how did the first revelation came to the Holy Prophet before हमने जब ये इज्मा और कियास कवर किया था. Now, अब हम उधर से आगे की बात करेंगे that when he actually received that first revelation, अब क्या होगा? Some of the early converts, क्योंकि प्रॉफिट अपनी फैमिली में वेरी क्लोज रिलेटिव्स में प्रीचिंग तो शुरू कर दी थी. In the year 610, the Prophet ﷺ received the first revelation at the cave of Hira, और हमने पूरा लास्ट क्लास के अंदर भी कवर किया था. For the first 3 years, the Prophet preached the message secretly to close people, and Hazrat Khatija was the first to convert after hearing the events of Hira. Hazrat Abu Bakr was the first adult male to convert to Islam, and he was the only one to accept the message without hesitation after hearing of it. Other early converts include Hazrat Ali, Zaid bin Haris, Usman, Abdurrahman bin Auf, Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, Khalid bin Zaid, and many other converted as well at the hand of Abu Bakr, जिनको Hazrat Abu Bakr ने भी कहा था. Khalid bin Zaid ने एक dream देखी थी where his father was pushing him into a fire and the Prophet saved him. Abu Bakr interpreted his dream and sent him to the Prophet to accept Islam. Hazrat Usman को भी एक आवाज आई थी saying that sleepers awake, for verily Ahmad has come forth in Makkah. अबू बकर को जब उस्मान ने आके ये वाक्य सुनाया कि उनको ये एक आवाज सुनाई दी थी, अबू बकर ने उनको भी प्रॉफिट के पास भेज दिया. And the Prophet was commanded to preach to his nearest of kin as well. In the verse, warn your family who are your nearest of kin. ये तो एक उनको रेवलेशन भी आई थी कि अब preaching बिल्कुल next of kin, closest family को कर दो शुरू. The Prophet even arranged a meal for all the sons of Abu Muttalib and told him about his mission. No one responded to his message, and Hazrat Ali, aged 10, stood up and shared, "O Prophet of Allah, I will be your helper in this." And the men laughed at the Prophet और सारे disperse हो गए थे. So this is where Hazrat Ali accepted Islam, और ये आपको mention करना चाहिए reference. Meal ने तो काम नहीं किया, so he went on Mount of Safa, and after preaching to his family, the Prophet was ordered to preach publicly as well. In the revelation, arise and warn. The Prophet climbed the hill of Safa and gathered all the Makkans and asked them if they would believe if he said that there was an army ready to attack them. मक्कन्स ने कहा, जो मक्का के रहने वाले थे, यस वी हैव ओनली हर्ड द ट्रूथ फ्रॉम यू, और हम आपकी बात मानेंगे अगर आप कहोगे कि पीछे से एक आर्मी अटैक करने वाली है. बट व्हेन ही प्रीच्ड द मैसेज ऑफ इस्लाम, दे टर्न्ड अवे एंड लेफ्ट. His uncle Abu Lahab even cursed him, may you perish forever. Did you call us for such a thing? The Prophet was greatly saddened and shook by the response of the Makkans, and Allah revealed Surah Masad to console him that may the hand of Abu Lahab perish, doomed he is. अब जब प्रीचिंग का पता लग ही गया था कुरैश को, दे स्टार्टेड अ लॉट ऑफ ऑपोजिशन, जिसका एक आपको 10 मार्क क्वेश्चन भी आ सकता है. व्हाट इज दैट 10 मार्क क्वेश्चन? डिस्क्राइब द परसिक्यूशंस एंड द ऑपोजिशन बाय द कुरैश. The Prophet invited more people to Islam every chance he got, and as more people converted, conflicts between the believers and Quraysh increased, and the Quraysh were worried about the Prophet spreading Islam more during the pilgrimage season. The Quraysh decided to frame him as a magician to stop, and the Prophet did not pay attention to it and went to camps of pilgrims to preach. The Quraysh then also started to ridicule and degrade the Muslims there as well, और प्रॉफिट को जादू के ऊपर एक्यूज करने लगे थे that prophet is doing witchcraft. They also distorted his teachings and circulated false allegations as well. And when these tactics failed to stop the spread of Islam, they began persecuting the Muslims as well. And the uncle of Hazrat Usman used to wrap him in a mat of palm leaves and set fire under them as well. जो Hazrat Usman के uncle थे. Hazrat Bilal used to be beaten by his master Umayyah bin Khalf, and he would be tied up and dragged around the streets as well. उनके ऊपर एक बहुत भारी पत्थर रखा जाता था in the middle of the desert under the scorching suns. Many early converts were brutally tortured in this way, men and women alike, and it was not easy to harm the Prophet himself because of his personality, lineage, and the protection of Abu Talib. तो Holy Prophet को persecute नहीं कर पाते थे ये. The Quraysh even tried to threaten Abu Talib and offered him riches and whatever the Prophet desires, be it be the most beautiful woman, even if he gives up on his message. अबू तालिब ने ये बात अपने नेफ्यू को बताई कि वो ये कह रहे हैं, तो प्रॉफिट ने रिस्पॉन्ड किया, ओ अंकल, even if they place the sun in my right hand and the moon on my left to force me to renounce my mission, I would not stop until Allah fulfill my missions or destroys me in the process. मैं तब तक नहीं, even अगर ये मेरे दाएं हाथ पे सूरज और बाएं हाथ पे चांद भी रख दे, ठीक है, तब भी मैं अपना मिशन खत्म नहीं करूंगा. Hearing that, Abu Talib also responded to Holy Prophet क्योंकि उनको बहुत proud feel हुआ, and he said that go and preach what you please for. By Allah, I will not forsake you. Abu Lahab also began to throw stones at the Prophet during all of this persecution. And Abu Lahab की जो wife होती थी वो सारे thorns और brambles और कांटे, even rubbish वगैरह, ठीक है, कचरा फेंक देती थी जहां से भी वो गुजरा करते थे. Once they even put the intestines of a camel on the Prophet's back while he was in prostration, and he remained in prostration till his daughter Fatima came and removed it. Abu Jahl forced his two sons to divorce the daughters of the Prophet as well, and when Prophet lost his son, they called him Abtar, one without a male hair. तो ये बहुत अच्छा आंसर आपका 10 मार्क्स का बन सकता है if you include all of these points and one of this reference as well. This kind of an answer can get you easily 10 marks in a question where you can describe the persecutions and the opposition by the Quraysh. Migration to Abyssinia. Now in the 5th year of prophethood, ये persecutions बढ़ती जा रही थी. And the Prophet gave permission to Muslims to migrate to Abyssinia to save themselves from violence. The king of Abyssinia, Negus, was also said to be just a man. The Muslims migrated in two groups. The first group had 12 men and 5 women, जिसमें Hazrat Usman and the wife and the daughter of Prophet Ruqayya was also among them. They were welcomed there and were given the freedom to practice their religion as well. Later that year in Ramadan, the Prophet recited the verses of Surah Najm at the Kaaba in front of a large group of idolaters जो बुतों की पूजा करते थे काबा में, and they were so spellbound by the beauty of the words, they fell in prostration. This incident was misreported to the Abyssinian Muslims that all of the Makkah had accepted Islam, and they returned to Makkah only to find out that it was not true. कि किसने कहा कि पूरे मक्का ने इस्लाम एक्सेप्ट कर लिए और सारे अबिसिनियन जो मुस्लिम्स गए थे वो वापस आ गए अपना सब कुछ छोड़ के, पता लगा ये तो झूठी थी. Second migration कब हुई? When the Quraysh started to persecute them even more after hearing their good treatment in Abyssinia. उनको पता लगा कि मुस्लिम्स को बड़ा अच्छा वेलकम किया अबिसिनियंस ने, इनको और तब चढ़ गई. The Prophet allowed the Muslims to migrate again. This time the group included 83 men and 18 women who secretly made the journey. Jafar bin Abi Talib led them, and the Quraysh were angered when they found out. They sent two men, including Amr bin As, and to slander Muslims in front of Negus, जो Najashi था. They even sent for him and his generals gifts. They asked Negus to return them to the people of Quraysh, and Negus wanted to hear the Muslim side to it. Jafar bin Abi Talib stepped forward and told Negus how they were in ignorance and lived sinful lives, and how the Prophet took them out of the dark. Negus was pleased by Jafar's word, and Amr bin As objected and said that they do not believe in Jesus. मतलब ये Negus और नजाशी जो था ये तो एक क्रिश्चियन किंग था. अब कुरैश के बंदे ने अमर बिन आस ने कहा कि ये क्रिश्चियनिटी एक्सेप्ट नहीं करती, क्रिश्चियनिटी को मानते ही नहीं है मुस्लिम्स, आपने इनको क्यों रखा हुआ. उसी वक्त नीगस आस्क्ड जाफर अबाउट इट, एंड जाफर रिसाइटेड द वर्सेस ऑफ सूरह मरियम. When Jafar finished his recitation, the whole court had tears in his eyes, and Negus sent back the delegation of Quraysh along with their gifts के कहा कि I would not return the Muslims even if he was offered a mountain of gold. मतलब सूरह मरियम सुन के, क्योंकि सूरह मरियम indicates a lot of similarities between Islam and Christianity. This angered Quraysh greatly and made them persecute the Muslims of Makkah even more. तभी एक बॉयकॉट प्लान हो गया था अगेंस्ट मुस्लिम्स व्हेन कन्वर्जन ऑफ हजरत उमर एंड हजरत हमजा इवन एंगर्ड द कुरैश इवन मोर. क्योंकि जब इन दोनों ने इस्लाम कबूल किया था, ये बहुत बड़े वॉरियर्स, बहुत रिस्पेक्टेड पर्सनालिटी एंड वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग पर्सन्स थे व्हिच हैड अ लॉट ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस. मुस्लिम ने इनके कन्वर्जन के बाद बहुत स्ट्रेंथ हासिल की. मुस्लिम्स वर्शिप कर सकते थे, खुले नमाज पढ़ सकते थे, उनको कोई डर नहीं होता था क्योंकि हजरत उमर और हजरत हमजा ने भी इस्लाम कबूल कर लिया था. इससे द कुरैश वर एंगर्ड एंड अबू जहल परसुएडेड कुरैश टू टेक एक्शन. इन्होंने एक बैन लिखा. इट वाज रिटन एंड प्लेस्ड इनसाइड द काबा. A ban was imposed on the entire clan of Banu Hashim, and no one was allowed to marry a boy or girl from Banu Hashim. No one was even allowed to sell or buy anything from them, and this would continue. ये boycott तब कब तक चलेगा? Until the Prophet renounces the prophethood or the Banu Hashim renounced him. The Banu Hashim gathered at the Shebe Abu Talib for security. एक वैली होती थी, and the members of their kin would even smuggle food to them. ये बैन 3 साल बाद लिफ्ट किया गया था, and people began to protest the ill treatment of kinsmen. The Protestants demanded the ban to be torn, and the Quraysh was against it. When they brought it out of the Kaaba, they found कि उनको दीमक ने खा चुका था. वो जो बैन जिस कागज के ऊपर लिखा हुआ था, वो कागज टर्माइट्स खा चुकी थी, except the part where it said Bismillah. At this, the Quraysh abolished the ban when they saw कि वो सारा दीमक खा चुकी है papers. Well, after the boycott came the year of grief, year of sorrow, जिसको आमुल हुज़न भी कहते हैं. The year 619 brought great grief to the Prophet. Soon after the ban was lifted, his wife Khatija passed away, and she had been his wife, companion, friend, counselor, and even the mother of his children. She believed in his prophethood before the Prophet himself was even sure about it, and she had comforted him all through. Soon after Hazrat Khatija, Abu Talib fell ill and he passed away too. Abu Talib had been his source of strength and protection, and he lost both of his source of comfort and protection in the same year as well. After the passing of Abu Talib, Abu Lahab became the great leader of Banu Hashim, who was a strict opponent of Islam. So this was problematic. जब हजरत खतीजा और हजरत अबू तालिब की डेथ हो चुकी थी, अबू तालिब की जगह अबू लहब आ चुके थे. So after the passing of Abu Talib, persecutions मजीद बढ़ती गई मक्का के अंदर, and now Prophet decided to visit Taif. Dust and sand were thrown on the Prophet everywhere. Even the companions faced greater and greater hardships every day. The Prophet sought the help of the people of Taif, and he went to the walled town with Zaid bin Haris. The Prophet went to there the three brothers who were the temple guardians, who even insulted him and humiliated him. ठीक है. विजिट पीपल ऑफ ताइफ ने उनको भी इंसल्ट किया, उनको पत्थर मारे, ह्यूमिलिएट भी किया, और एक बच्चों का मॉब ने उनको चेज किया जब तक वो ताइफ से निकल नहीं गए. The shoes of both the Prophet and Zaid bin Haris were filled with blood, and the Prophet took shelter in a walled garden at the edge of Taif. The orchard belonged to a man of Quraysh, and seeing the condition of his kinsmen, he sent his slave with grapes. Angel Jibrail came to the Prophet and asked if the Prophet willed, Taif would be crushed between two mountains. But Prophet ने मना कर दिया कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं. He hoped that their future generations would come to Islam, और बकायदा बदुआ की जगह उन्हें दुआ दी ताइफ के लोगों को. He spent a total of 10 days at Taif before returning to Makkah, and then came the pledges of Aqaba. In 11th year of prophethood, when he had came back from Makkah, 6 people from Yasrib came to Makkah for Hajj, and the Prophet met them secretly and invited them to Islam. Then they accepted his invitation, और जब वो 6 लोग यसरब गए, they invited even more people to Islam. And 12th year of prophethood में second pledge of a Kaaba आया, which included 12 people. First pledge में कितने आए? 6 people. Second pledge में 12 people. These 12 people took the first pledge of a Kaaba at the hand of the Prophet, and they promised to support Islam physically and financially as well. The Prophet sent Musa bin Umair to Medina to preach Islam, and Musa was very successful in inviting more people, which included in the 13th year came 73 men and 2 people. This is the third pledge of a Kaaba. They embraced Islam and pledged the second pledge of a Kaaba. ये third होना चाहिए, second क्यों लिखा? They pledged to listen to and obey the Prophet and spend in the way of Islam, enjoin the good, forbid evil, and fear none but Allah, and protect and defend the Prophet fully. तो यहाँ से मजीद इन प्लेजेस ऑफ अ काबा जब लोग हज करने आते थे, फिर वो वापस जाके इनवाइट करते थे और लोगों को, और वो सारे ऑटोमेटिकली इस्लाम में आते गए. दिस एक्चुअली, ठीक है, दिस एक्चुअली इंक्रीज द strength of Islam as well. And the people of Yasrib also invited him to his town. इधर बीच में एक वाक्य हुआ था, which was the मिराज का वाक्य. One night, the Prophet was staying at his cousin's Hani's house, and the Prophet was awoken by angel Jibrail in the middle of the night. The angel took him to a burak, एक उड़ने वाला घोड़ा, like an incredible speed, एक जानवर. The Prophet sat on burak and was taken to Masjid al-Aqsa, and all the previous prophets were also there. The Prophet Muhammad led them all in prayer, and Angel Jibrail brought vessels containing milk, wine, and water to the Prophet, and Prophet chose milk. The angel said, "You have been guided by the Fitra." The part of the journey is known as Isra, and after that, Prophet was taken for the Miraj and ascended the heavens on Burak. The Prophet met different people on different heavens. For example, Hazrat Adam on the first, Hazrat Yahya and Isa on the second, Hazrat Yusuf on the third, Hazrat Idris on fourth, Hazrat Harun on the fifth, Hazrat Musa on sixth, Hazrat Ibrahim on seventh. सात आसमान पे उन्होंने हर prophet से मिला. When the Prophet reached Sidratul Muntaha, the Lord tree, Angel Jibreel said he couldn't go any further or his wings would be burned. The Prophet was shown at the Baitul Mamur, which is like the Kaaba of angels, जहाँ वो सारे worship करते हैं अल्लाह को. The Prophet then met Allah, and he was given the command of 50 prayers, and the final 2 verses of Surah Baqarah were revealed as well. When the Prophet met Hazrat Musa on his descent, Hazrat Musa said to the Prophet that 50 is too much for the believers. मतलब 50 नमाजें बहुत ज़्यादा होंगी believers के लिए. The Prophet went back and requested for a reduction, and the Prophet requested multiple times जब तक finally 5 वक्त की नमाज फर्ज हुई थी. The Prophet was also shown heaven and hell, and at the same night he then returned back to Makkah as well. When the Prophet narrated about his journey, the Makkans taunted and laughed at him, and they found it impossible to journey to Jerusalem in such a small amount of time. When Hazrat Abu Bakr ने ये बात सुनी थी प्रॉफिट के मुंह से कि उन मिराज का पूरा सफर, उन्होंने 1 सेकंड के अंदर ही बात पर यकीन कर लिया, and he earned the title of Al-Siddiq as well, which means the testifier of truth. And that is all for the chapter of life in Makkah.